I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Here we go, kiddos. Another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. It is Tuesday, March 10th. Thank you for everyone for checking into today's show on the Daily Puck Drop. We've got, we'll recap the Seahawks free agency. Was there a surprise in there in free agency talk? Cal versus Randy. Fight! All of it. I'm in on all of the Randy and Cal fight, whatever's going on. All of it. Here for all of it. The Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano joins us on Tuesdays. And Robbie Tobeck is coming up on the show a little bit later today. And I just realized I've got Robbie's name spelled wrong. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to change that. Give me 1 second. Because, that's not good. All right. We are coming via the Limback Lumber Studios. Contractors, they're going to take care of you on everything. Because that's what they do at Limback Lumber, all right? They're the one-stop shop of taking care of you. All you got to do, pick up that phone, give them a call, ask them for help. Tell them Puck sent you. Said, hey, he said, Puck said this is where you go to get lumber. You're damn right it is. Limback Lumber, 206-782-3487. Visit them, please, at limbacklumber.com. They are going to take care of you. Always going to take care of you there at Limback Lumber, limbacklumber.com. Follow me on all the social media platforms, Puck Sports everywhere, except for the one and only TikTok, which is Puck_sports, by the way. And you can visit us up at pucksports.com. There you can sign up to become a Puck's Posse member. It's just $5 a month. You get all the bonus shows we do throughout the week. Tuesdays, it's the Sports Pit with Matt Stretch Johnson. Wednesdays, it's Inside Pitch with Ryan Divish. Thursdays, KJ Arntz with Mitch Levy. We give you bonus shows, plus it's a way to support the Daily Puck Drop, all the content we do Monday through Friday. Now, as always, if you have any issues with the $5, email me, puck@pucksports.com. We will take care of you. No questions asked. Don't worry about it. We want everyone to have all the access if you want it, but we also understand if you cannot afford it. All right, John Canzano coming up again on the show today. Robbie Tobeck and a bunch of other news and notes, of course, on this day. We'll do at the end of the show. Of course, we finish everything out with, hey, what the puck? Seahawks free agency as we recap. Nothing new here on day 2 of free agency as we recap day 1. I guess I was thinking, are there any surprises? Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised that Rashad Shaheed came back. I didn't think Shaheed would come back at all. In fact, I thought he was gone. I thought the only guy that they would retain, which they ended up doing, and I think he got, $24 million over 3 years. By the way, this is not going to be the show to come to Cap Talk. I'm going to tell you that right now. Is Josh Jobe. Josh Jobe kind of felt like he was the one guy that they had probably the best opportunity to retain. You knew that Boye Mafe was going to be too expensive. I'm stunned with what he got. I mean, just stunned. I mean, over $60 million. I just said I wasn't going to do. We're not really doing Cap Talk here. This is a Cap Talk free zone. But do you know the contract he signed in terms of guaranteed money? It's, if he were currently on the team, would be second to only Leonard Williams. And I would just say, I think he's a very good player. Take a step back. Do you think Boye Mafe is worth that type of money? And now we're being disparaging about a player that went elsewhere. Good for Boye Mafe. It wasn't going to happen here. He got paid. The Bengals saw the value in him. And again, there was some other analytical stats that put his value higher than would suggest what he earned and would suggest of the productivity of the raw numbers we see all the time. He just the 2 sacks last year. So not surprised he left. Not surprised Walker left. Surprised by that was the money per year. I didn't think he'd quite get to that. And then the guaranteed money there for Ken Walker. I think he's going to a great team. It's a perfect fit for Ken Walker to go to the Kansas City Chiefs, to work with Andy Reid, to work with Patrick Mahomes of that offense. I think the one thing he doesn't get enough credit for, and I bet you he has probably his most productive season, is receiving the ball out of the backfield. I think he's a much better running back coming out of the backfield, catching the ball than people realize, especially with him in open space. I bet he thrives in Andy Reid's offense of doing that. And so it's a great fit for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs know it. They're going all in. They've got to. They've got a window here. One more year, probably Kelsey, and who knows how much longer Patrick Mahomes has. I mean, he's got, not like his career is almost over, but they need to make a splash. They need to make a headline, and they did that. So it's a great move there by Walker. Smart team to go to. And then I think for Seattle, I'm, again, stunned that Shaheed signed back. The amount of money, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I think what you've got to see for Shaheed, I know what his value is in the return game and special teams, and I love special teams. He's got to be more productive in the receiving game. He has to be, because he wasn't that big of a factor last year. He comes halfway through the season. Not like he was learning a totally different system, because it was kind of the same system that Kubiak ran with the Saints, but he's working with a new quarterback. So we'll see what the offseason brings there for Rashad Shaheed. But then the options at running back, we got to see what they got to do. There's not a lot left in free agency. There wasn't really much in free agency at all. Once you got past ETN and once you got past Walker, who was going to retain their own, it's really dropped off since then. You're picking up the scraps. A few guys out there. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show, and then the draft. And again, I know it's going to say it's a down year in the draft, but they always say it's a down year in the draft for some position group. And then you look back later at the draft, like 4 years later, and go, well, that guy was great. He was a Pro Bowler. He's an all-pro, and he was apparently a part of this class that sucked. So I know what the draft experts say. Let it play out. No one knows how the whole thing's going to shape out once these guys are drafted to get in the NFL. Guys that everyone thinks are going to be hits, they're misses. The guys that think they're misses ultimately be hits. We'll get more into the running back situation, what Seattle could be looking at here a little bit later in the show. Also, Cal versus Randy. This is what we needed. Teammates beefing, no handshakes, country pride on the line. And our guy Randy stuck out his hand, rejected by the captain Cal. And then there was expletives afterwards for Randy Arozarena. We'll get into that a little bit later. As we do every Tuesday, we talk all things sports, college football, college basketball, everything. There is no topic that we do not touch here when we talk to John Canzano of the Bald Faced Truth, brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. If it's fun you desire, it's fun you're going to get at Flat Stick Pub. It doesn't matter what the occasion is, whether it's date night, guys night, ladies night, or large group event, Flat Stick Pub's got you covered. They have 6 great locations across the Pacific Northwest, from Pioneer Square to Kirkland, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. All locations offer the best pub experience in Washington. 2 rules at Flat Stick Pub: drink local and have fun. Pretty simple. So if you like to have fun, love local beer, and great tasting food, make Flat Stick Pub your next spot. Visit them at flatstickpub.com. John Canzano from johncanzano.com, Bald Faith Truth. Go get a subscription today if you don't have one. Also, check out the YouTube page, John Canzano. When you were playing baseball, your position was?
I played outfield in college.
Outfield in college.
Yeah.
If an opponent came up to you, you stuck out your hand, you were teammates, and you were playing for different countries, and your teammate said, "Get your hand away." What would the young, fiery John Canzano do?
I love this. I love this. Look, I think we need more of this in sport. I think that if you're the NBA and you're Adam Silver, are you not looking over at the World Baseball Classic and going, how do I duplicate that with my league instead of this all-star game? Could you do something like that? And I know they're trying to do these midseason tournaments and stuff, but they've tapped into something there that, feels like it's born from the Olympics. I mean, I just love it. I love like USA against Canada in hockey. This baseball thing's great. I love it.
Let me stay on that real topic before we get into the more pressing needs. Obviously, your conversation or what you've just written at johncanzano.com. We'll get to that and thoughts on David Riley and President Cantwell. But you're a baseball fan. You played college baseball. Yeah. The decision of Tarik Skubal.
Yeah.
How closely have you monitored this? And for people who don't know, Skubal committed to play for the WBC, then said later, I'm only going to pitch in one game. He pitched against Great Britain. Then he's waffled, gone back and forth. He's left the team to go back to the Tigers. And the reason he's doing it, because he doesn't want to get injured, because he's a pending free agent.
I feel like he wanted the glow of being part of it without really being part of it. You know what I mean? Like, one time at a Super Bowl, they have these Super Bowl parties. Everybody knows about these parties that go around the Super Bowl. And I was in Tampa for the Super Bowl, and I got invited to this party as a media member where it was Kim Kardashian and Jenny McCarthy were hosting a party. And so I go there, I get into this VIP area, and they got all, I suddenly realized like all the B-list celebrities are there early, and they're there. Like Wade Boggs was there. The guy who does the Gazelle, Tony Little or whatever his name is, he was there. Like there were all these kind of B-list celebrities that were there. And I was waiting, like, is Kardashian going to walk through here or not? And then eventually I was out on the curb when I was leaving, and there was a guy standing out there. He was smoking a cigarette, and he said, he's the promoter. And I was like, hey, can I ask you, did Kim Kardashian show up? I never saw her. And he said she did. And he was all kinds of pissed off because he said he paid her like 25 grand to put her name on the party. And she got out of her limo. She walked through the party, just walked through it, and then left, got back in the limo and took off. And he was saying, like, he was really mad that she didn't like fulfill her obligation to this party. And I feel like Skubal just did that, right? Like he got out of the limo, he walked around the World Baseball Classic, and then ultimately he did what his camp wanted him to do all along, which was not get hurt, not pitch, really.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I understand it with the money that he has. None of us can ever appreciate the amount of money that he's about to sign. But I think at the same time, it's disappointing as from a competitive standpoint.
Yeah, it's un-American. All right. It's un-American. Like, and people would say, no, it really is American. Like this is the American way of today's athlete.
I may disagree with you. I think it's very American. I don't know if it's un-American, John. I think it's uncompetitive.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is. And I've said this before, and everyone contends, and they're right. He's the best pitcher probably in baseball. I got a fundamental issue with him. This is a guy last year in a pivotal game 5 with his season and his team's season on the line. He allowed himself to get pulled from an elimination game against the Mariners. He was at 99 pitches. He had just struck out Cal Raleigh, MVP candidate of the American League, on 3 pitches that registered 99, 99, and 100. And before someone comes to me, well, he was emptying the chamber. He was throwing 100 in the 3rd inning. Yeah. This guy had so much left in the tank and said, no, I've reached my threshold because we decided before the game I was out at this limit, so I'm done. And then what happened? They couldn't touch him, and then they exploded, and then they beat Detroit because they got to their bullpen. There's something off with him, I think. He's a modern athlete in today's world. This is not Kurt Schilling and the bloody sock. This is not Jack Morris. This is not a pitcher throwing 9 innings and going complete games. I was looking at obviously there are pitchers today, like when you look at the league leaders in complete games and innings, it pales in comparison to like the 1970s, 1980s, even. These guys are worried about themselves and their own careers. And yes, it's non-competitive. And that's what I mean. Like it's, he's a commie for not participating and supporting his country and playing in this thing. There's a bunch of guys out there playing. But I'll tell you this, like I was at Pac-12 Media Days a couple of years ago. Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, was there. He was in his last season at USC. Cam Rising was there. He was coming off a knee injury, right? Mm-hmm. They had a pickleball court that was set up in the media interview area where I was doing my interviews. There was a pickleball court off to the side. Caleb Williams was waiting to come in for an interview with me because I was talking to Michael Penix, and Cam Rising was after him, and they kind of backed up, and they were over by the pickleball court. They picked up the paddles and started playing. And I looked over and I thought we would never see this from 2 NFL players whose agents would be like, no, don't do it. They were playing pickleball, and Rising, he couldn't move all that well, but they were hitting the ball back and forth, and it started to get a little chippy and competitive. And I thought, this is great. This is like watching 2 neighborhood kids just play. And now, and they saw a glimpse into their future when they're 60, playing pickleball in some sunny place there in Florida. All right, you have posted the latest column up at the Bald Face Truth. Yeah, at johncanzano.com, and it's a great little title. Don't look now, but here comes Washington State with the subheadline, quote, nobody remembers Jimmy Rogers. You bumped into President Betsy Cantwell, had a chance to speak with her. probably on a number of topics. One, I've skimmed the column because it just came out. So we'll highlight some of the things, and you touch on them as well. The $20 million investment that the Board of Regents has made into athletics, and then also the decision to bring David Riley back. Let's first start with the David Riley, because you're the one who had the story first, that they're going to bring Riley back for a third season. Why do you think they're going to do that?
Well, they're disappointed. John Harlow, the interim AD, and Betsy Cantwell, the president, both sounded disappointed. Even as I asked about David Riley, they wouldn't talk about him. They would not say, "Oh, he's coming back." I am told he's coming back, and nobody's refuting that. Harlow's got to meet with Riley, and they have a meeting on the books, I think, later this week or early next week, and they're going to talk about what needs to change inside the program, presumably. But I got a copy of Riley's contract, and it may be as simple as this, Puck. I had believed that there was a relatively low buyout to get out of Riley's deal. It's not true. In his contract, they'd owe him $2.7 million to get out of that deal.
Oh,
and I think it's a little more than has been reported other places. It's too much. It's too rich for your blood if you're Washington State right now. And you think about what just happened. The Regents just redirected $20 million of campus funding to your athletic department. The last thing you want to do if you're Betsy Cantwell or you're John Harlow is go, great, we got that money. Let's go spend it on buying out David Riley and make another coaching change. You also think about what happened at Washington State. None of this has to do with the basketball, which was bad down the stretch. They absolutely swooned in February and March. But you think about what's happened on this campus. 3 football coaches, 2 university presidents, 2 ADs, 2 basketball coaches. You have a number of other Olympic sports coaches that have turned over. It has been turmoil. And right now, if you're Washington State, you've got some momentum with the hire of Kirby Moore that you hadn't had before. You got $20 million that is being redirected from your regents to help fill the hole in the budget that comes from the Pac-12 distributions not being there the last 2 years. This new campaign, this fundraising campaign about the fan experience, they're at almost $11 million it raised in just 3 months. And I think they feel like they've got some swagger, they've got some momentum. And Betsy Cantwell gave me that quote. And, as a writer, and you're talking to a university president, I am not used to hearing university presidents speak this way. I kind of like her. She's got a little moxie. And she says, I said, what markers do you look for when you're talking to donors? She says, quote, nobody remembers Jimmy Rogers. Now, she may not mean that as a slap, but it's a slap, Puck. I mean, she's basically saying we've upgraded, we've moved on, we have some momentum. But I think the Riley move is rooted in $2.7 million, bad optics. And I think there's some question, did the athletic department do, in the transition from Ann McCoy to John Harlow as the AD, did they do everything they possibly could do to support David Riley? Or do they feel like maybe some of that affected and impacted his ability to win?
And I guess that would lead us, because I'm like many other people, in a lot of these contracts are, they're public, under the impression that his buyout was $1 million. But
yeah, 2.7. 2.7
is very different than $1 million.
Yes.
I could see the hesitation from the university then to want to part with him after 2 years. Do you get the impression at all from them that the $20 million that the Board of Regents now has given the athletic department to spend, how much, I'm going to assume the majority of it's spent on football, how much do you think that they spend on basketball to improve that product there for David Riley?
All right, so that is interesting, because I was under the impression too. I saw $20 million and I thought, they're going to put that into their football roster. Betsy Cantwell told me that $20 million, and John Harlow, the interim AD, told me that $20 million, it will simply be used for operations. It slides into that. They had $21 million in distributions that they got in the old legacy Pac-12 in the final year. The last 2 years, that number dropped to like 1.5 million in 2024 and 1.5 million in 2025. So they need that money to just not cut things, not have to cut sports, to be able to pay people to. So that's operational money. That's not like, hey, this is going to fund your football program and you're going to be suddenly great. But the peripheral, like the ripples of that, are that you can now take all this money that you're raising as part of these new campaigns and use that money to fortify football, to fortify basketball. And that's where I expect the investment's going to be at Washington State. And I think this is a little bit of a wake-up call for Oregon State, because Oregon State right now is struggling with revenue and turmoil. There's some, the athletic director questions and firing a basketball coach. Washington State right now has sort of planted a flag and said, we are going to be whole as an athletic department because now we have $20 million to buy us some time. And Betsy Cantwell said to me, she said, we don't need our donors to give in perpetuity. And this is an interesting thing. I've never heard a campus administrator say something like this. She said, we don't need you to give forever, Puck. She says, we need you to commit to 2 to 3 years. Because what they're hoping is that these distributions from the new Pac-12, media rights, postseason revenues, are going to float the boat really eventually. But right now there's a gap of 2 to 3 years where they need the donors, the 250,000 alums that are out there. Only 4,000 are given. We've talked about that. They need those donors to step up. If they do step up, I think they can fortify football and basketball in a way that might be very interesting to the rest of this conference. And now I'm looking at Washington State going, why are they walking with the swagger? What do they know that the rest of us don't? I think what they know is they've got a plan, and I think they've got some revenue, and I think they've got the right coach. Kirby Moore looks like a great hire. I do think it'll be about 85% of the revenue, to answer your question. 85% of the revenue I expect to go into football.
Okay, so when you say the operational stuff of the $20 million, maybe expand on that for fans who may not understand, like, what do you mean by going to operational things for the athletic department?
Well, you had this budget of like $80 million in the athletic department, and you were used to, in the old Pac-12, getting media rights distributions and postseason revenues, like CFP and playoff and bowl revenues that gave you, another 21 million was the number at Washington State in 2023. You got $21 million from the conference. Now, they got the settlement, and that certainly helps, but they have a hole in their ongoing budget because, you have debt service on your stadiums and your venues. You've got salaries, you've got expenses and other programs where you were operating with this $80 million budget all along. And suddenly now you're getting $21 million less. So there was a real question like, hey, how much do you have to cut here in order to just operate? And so what the regents did, and it's interesting because the prior president, Kirk Schultz, remember the regents directed him to give Jake Dickert $2 million and he didn't do it. Well, Betsy Cantwell has got that same instruction. Like, hey, on your campus, find $20 million and slide it over to the athletic department that wasn't there before. And so if you were John Harlow, the interim AD, you're like, thank you. Like, somebody's seeing us and answering our prayer here because, that just helps you live. It helps you thrive. It helps you not have to cut sports. It helps you, be able to pay your coaches and your support staff. Like the direct impact is like the assistant coaching pool at Washington State in football is not going to take the hit that the pool at Oregon State's going to take.
How much do the money? Okay, so of the $20 million, going to operational factors within the athletic department, that will not be used on retaining or acquiring players.
It won't directly, but the indirect, net impact of it is that you don't have to suck money from your other revenue streams to help meet your budget. So now, yes, you have additional dollars that you can go say, hey, let's go out and let's fortify things. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception that 20 million is like, hey, 16 million is going to the roster. No, but what I do expect is, when you look at these schools in the New World Pac-12, you're going to get these wide ranges of investment in the roster. And it's funny how they're all playing poker. All the ADs I talk with are all say the same thing. They all ask me, what's Oregon State spending? What's Boise State spending? They all have a general idea of what people are going to spend in football. And the old number was like, hey, could you spend $5 million? If you could spend $5 million on your roster, great. But I think people are now talking about 7, 9, what will Boise State spend? And then there's a whole nother calculus in basketball because guess what? Gonzaga is going to get a full media rights distribution in the new Pac-12. and they don't have to spend anything on football. They're going to put everything into basketball. They are going to be a monster in basketball.
How do you, if you're David Riley, I'll back up. If you're Cantwell and Harlow, if the buyout isn't 2.7 and it's lower, do you think he's back? Or do you think that's just the major factor into why he's coming back for year 3?
I think it's more than half of the factor. But as I talked to athletic department sources at Washington State, the prevailing thought was it has been so disruptive. The firing of Ann McCoy, the appointment of John Harlow, that's 3 months ago, right? Like, so that comes right in the, as Riley's trying to launch his season. Before that, it was the changeover Kirk Schultz to Elizabeth Cantwell. You got the football thing going on in the background. How much of the attention and the bandwidth in the Washington State's athletic department has been shifted from men's basketball to, getting football settled and getting all this fundraising done? And, oh yeah, what's David Riley doing? We kind of expected he would be above 500, right? And he never got there. He got to 3-3, and then it was just terrible down the stretch. And I don't blame people for being upset, but I think that maybe 30 or 40% of this is Washington State looking in the mirror and going, maybe we didn't do a great job supporting this guy. And let's face it, I think we all knew when they hired David Riley, they were not getting Kyle Smith. They were not getting Tony Bennett. But they thought they were getting a guy they could grow, right? And that they could develop as a head coach. He's young. He's still learning. And I think amid all that, you had just incredible turmoil and change around him. Now, he may not be the guy, but I think Washington State is sort of focused right now on 2.7 million's too rich to make a change. And let's see if we can help this guy by putting our arms around him.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to point this out that I'm one that think it's a mistake to bring him back, but now that they're going to, I'm willing to sit back and go, all right, well, let's see how it goes. Let's see what he can do if he gets more resources, and maybe after 2 years self-reflection, maybe comes out in year 3. I mean, maybe in this industry, I know we do it in sports. You overreact too quickly, and there's probably plenty of examples of someone like David Riley who has struggled in the first 2 years, and then by year 3 finally gets it going. Now this is different now because we're in a different time, right? He doesn't have freshmen that he's freshmen, sophomores. Now they're juniors, and he's put together this team. You're almost turning your roster over all the time. But again, to be fair to Riley and his staff, and fans have pointed this out, if Cedric Howard last year, who he brought over from Eastern Washington, does not get injured early in the season, potentially, I don't know how it unfolds, but he's a hell of a basketball player. He was a first-round pick. He's doing great things in the NBA. Maybe that season last year turns out differently if they've got a full season with him. And now you're not even kind of having this conversation. Obviously, priority number 1 for him is keeping Ace Glass and whatever they can do, because he is going to be, I think it's going to be a long shot. I think they're going to be outbid by a bigger basketball program. But, he's an outstanding freshman that, we'll get offers from a lot of schools around the country.
I want to say something, too. I ran into this Washington State team in an airport during the season. It was during their swoon. And, they don't play defense. They're not disciplined on the court. And the feeling I had being around this team in the wild was not a disciplined unit. And I could just tell you, we're all kind of maybe not at our best in an airport, but I ran into the Cougars team in the airport, and they don't know me. I'm walking along, but I saw them because why? Because they're wearing the Washington State gear. They're representing the brand. They're representing the university. And I looked around for the coaches. I looked, where are the coaches? Where's the coaching staff? I didn't see any coaches. I just saw the players. They were in line at a fast food place, and I was sitting at the gate that was kind of across from them, and I just kind of watched them. And I thought, what is this group about? Because on the court, they're falling apart, especially late in games. And they did not project to me discipline. They did not project to me pride. They did not project to me that they understood that they were representing their school. They didn't do anything like you would report to TSA or anything. It was just kind of a goofing off. They were coming off a loss. They should not have been kind of in that mental space. And I thought, this isn't a great representation. And so I think that message, that culture that Kyle Smith and Tony Bennett, and you've seen coaches at Washington State develop culture and win with culture. That's not there right now. And I think that's the area where if you are David Riley, you've got to really look at your program and go, am I recruiting the guys that are best for my culture? What is my culture? And how do I foster that? And I know it's hard when you're losing. We've all been around losing teams, and you tend to lose guys and they get selfish and it's late in the year and they get distracted. And I think Washington State had that problem down the stretch where they were just a bunch of guys thinking, all right, where am I going next year and what's happening? But I just walked away from that interaction because I've been around a lot of teams, and I thought I wouldn't, if I had not seen this team play, I would not have looked at the behavior and thought, well, this is a great team that is unified and galvanized and plays well together.
Well, I feel worse now. Thank you.
Just telling you, keeping it real.
Well, I know.
I feel like it's unfair because
I like it. I think you can judge. Yeah, I think you can judge people you can certainly judge people how they treat others strangers that you don't know.
I think
of course you can.
There's just there's a way of, I've seen really good teams that when you see them away from the facility, and there's a leadership, there's a unity, there's a decorum that you have that reeks of we get it, we're focused, we understand the gravity and the responsibility of what we're carrying. And I didn't get that vibe from this group. And it wasn't the whole team. It was like 6 or 7 players. And I just kind of watched them, and they were just goofing off. And I thought, if Betsy Cantwell or John Harlow were here, they wouldn't be happy with this.
I think that's just I think that represents kind of the larger issue with the state of college athletics stuff.
Yes.
And it's trickling into high school. When you just have hired guns and teams, they don't come in together as freshmen. They don't grow up together. They don't have the same teammates. They're getting new teammates every year, and everyone's out for themselves.
Yeah.
An individual game now.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too. Like, I didn't pay attention to who was in that group. Maybe it's the 5 guys at the end of the bench, and that's a whole nother problem that you encounter. Damon Stoudemire, who just, got fired at Georgia Tech. I was on the phone with him yesterday, and he was commenting to me like how much like the NBA, the locker rooms feel right now in college athletics. That he says it feels like the NBA from like a decade ago, 15 years ago, where you've got everybody's worried about, their next deal or whatnot. So there's some of that going on too. And I think basketball is harder than football. Your locker room it's harder to kind of galvanize because in some ways people go, well, it's a smaller locker room. I go, yeah, but if you have, Al McGuire said it, you can have 1 donkey, but you can't have 2 because then they start reproducing, and so then, in a locker room that is like, 12 to 15 guys, you can very quickly have the tide turn. And I think that happened to Washington State down the stretch.
You have powerful friends, and you have the means to make this happen. Can you do something for your good old friend Puck?
Okay.
I knew of a story of a couple of years ago that the athletic department tried to get Klay Thompson involved. But the current athletic department head, who now is at some despicable school that we will not speak of on this show, that wears terrible colors and just a terrible mascot and terrible everything, just did not handle it well when they brought him into town. Like just immediately we're like hotboxing him. This is when his jersey was getting retired and all of that. And he was put off by it. But we've seen other schools do this with alums. Davidson, I think Damian Lillard, of going back to their basketball programs. And again, they're spending their own money for their teams. No one, to me, carries more pride for his university than Klay Thompson does for Washington State. And I'm just wondering, like, can someone with that athletic department just reach back out to him and just be like, hey, the door is open. If you want to get involved, we're not going to pressure you, but we'd like to extend it. You obviously have the means and pride and love for the school. We'd love you to be on board. I need you to be that person that gets that done.
I will facilitate that deal. I'll work on that. But here's the thing. Like, I talked with John Harlow, the interim AD. I think he is going to eventually be promoted here to permanent AD. I think he will get that job. I do think the role of an AD has changed. And as I spoke with Elizabeth Cantwell, the president, about it, she sort of said, it's coming soon. And I got the vibe that, like, you know, you sometimes now today you're hiring more than one person to do that AD role, because somebody's got to be the COO, somebody's got to be the idea person, somebody has to do sort of the chief financial revenue generator. You know, it's almost like a three-headed monster now. But I kind of wonder if Elizabeth Cantwell is that person to get to Klay Thompson. Like, how big would it be for the university president?
Yeah.
She's got a little moxie. Okay. She you know, she doesn't rub everybody the right way, but this is she had Department of Defense security clearance. She was Lawrence Livermore Labs. She's like brilliant engineer. You know, she's got a little moxie.
Yeah.
Get her to an NBA game.
It'd be great. I just think that, again, rename the court, Klay Thompson Court, just something to get him activated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if he were to jump on board, maybe others would jump on board. You want your greats, right? Your greats to be around your program. Yeah. I've kept you long. I've got a couple more things. If you need to pull the ripcord, let me know.
Let's go.
This tweet that came out from, I'm gonna take an educated guess, this is Wayne Tinkle's son.
Okay.
Trace Tinkle.
Yeah.
And you retweeted this. And Trace Tinkle tweeted out yesterday, when the director of athletics meets the team before the conference tournament and tells them to be a bunch of individuals to only focus on themselves for portal opportunities, it's obvious he's afraid of the abilities inside that locker room. Now, one's going to take an educated guess that Trace Tinkle is talking about Scott Barnes. Have you heard anything about this? Did Scott Barnes meet with the team before and tell them, hey, go out and play like individuals so you can find a better school?
Look, I was in Vegas. I spoke with Wayne Tinkle a couple of times after he was informed he was fired. There's two things on this. One, there was a meeting about 3 weeks ago where Scott Barnes, the AD at Oregon State, went to Tinkle and tried to convince him to resign, to announce he was leaving at the end of the year. Barnes refused to do that, or excuse me, Tinkle refused to do that, said, no, I'm going to finish the year. Then Tinkle went on a win streak. He won 6 of 8. And Barnes called him back in and said, okay, I'm making a change at the end of the year. You know, he obviously, Scott Barnes got burned in 2021. He wanted to fire Tinkle, and then Tinkle won 6 straight games, went to the Elite 8. You know, he had him fired in his mind. And so he didn't want to repeat that. And I think Scott Barnes right now looks like he's stumbling around in the dark and he's stabbing at, you know, things. And but yes, after Tinkle was informed he was not going to return, Scott Barnes met with the Oregon State players. I am told by someone in the room that Barnes essentially said, keep playing. You guys are all going to have portal opportunities. And the underlying message was play for yourself and go out and, you know, put up big numbers. Now, he would probably justify that by saying he was trying to keep the players from just quitting, right? And saying, hey, I don't want to play in the conference tournament. Like, Barnes could probably make the case that I was just trying to help. You know, I speak the love language of today's athlete. But yeah, if I'm Wayne Tinkle, I'm looking at that going, you just told my guys who I'm coming back to coach in this conference tournament to go play for themselves. Like, why are you as the athletic director giving that message to my players? You shouldn't be talking to those guys in that way. Like, let the coach coach. Now, I was there in Vegas, talked to Tinkle before and after the opening round game where they beat San Francisco 78-77. I thought it was also a really bad thing that the search firm, Glenn Sugiyama and DHR Search, are doing the search. Dan Guerrero, the former UCLA AD, was with him in Vegas. Sugiyama's there. Also, Craig Thompson, the former Mountain West commissioner, is a consultant with DHR. Puck, they came into Tinkle's opening round game. They walk behind the bench into those seats that are for the team, like the trainer sitting there, whatnot. The search firm and the AD sat right behind Tinkle, right over his shoulder. It was a bad look. I thought it was kind of a BS move for a search firm. We're about to replace you. Let us sit in your back pocket here. And they're tapping their toes, like waiting for him to lose this game. Here's how it went down, though. They were there for about 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden they got moved. And so I thought, like, oh, did they just go there and then decide to move? No. turns out that someone on the Oregon State coaching staff whispered to the WCC, these guys are not supposed to be in this area. The WCC removed the 3 search firm guys that were there, and Barnes moved as well. But you know better if you are Dan Guerrero, the former AD at UCLA, you're Craig Thompson, the former commissioner, you're Scott Barnes, you're the AD at Oregon State. Get out of there. You know better than to sit there. I thought it was classless to sit behind Tinkle. And it doesn't even address, like, you may agree, I may agree, like, there's a season for all things. Tinkle, it's time to move on. Like, these are 2 separate things in my mind. Sure. I think it is time for Oregon State to move on. I think the way they did it is kind of crappy. You
can treat people with class, even if you're going to move on or fire them.
Yep.
You know, that's life, that happens, but it's the, excuse me, it's the tone, right? It's how you do it.
Yes.
You know, it's, I don't know. I think about youth coaching right now for some reason. You can sit there and you can yell at a kid during game or practice. They're probably not going to react well to yelling at them. But if you pull them aside and be, you know, kind of calm and measured and like quiet about it, but stern, I guess, I think sometimes that message gets received better. Yeah, there's just a better way to handle things. You mentioned that you were in Vegas, and we'll end with that, because you spending that time in Vegas was special for you, because 4 years ago,
that's right.
That's exactly where you started this whole thing. You leave the newspaper and you start JohnCanzano.com 4 years ago while you were in Las Vegas, Nevada. I love, you wrote a column about it, JohnCanzano.com. I encourage people, again, subscribe to it. If you're not a subscriber, go sign up now. It doesn't cost much at all, JohnCanzano.com. But I love how you ended your column reflecting back on the 4 years, saying, hey, maybe you come to Vegas to see a show, see a dinner, gamble, go to the club, have a drink, sit by the pool. You end it with, I always think of the city as a place where you hired me.
Yeah.
It's just a great ending to a great column. And in those 4 years flies by fast, John.
Yeah, I remember. Look, I worked for more than 25 years at 6 different newspapers, and I had the executive editor at the last paper I was at. You know, when I said I think I'm going to go on my own, she said, "You're throwing away 20 years, right? You're throwing away 25 years," and it was scary. Like, and I talked to a lot of small business owners, and there's probably a lot of people watching this that run a business or are in charge of a company. You wake up every day and it's on you. And Puck, you know this now. Like, it's on you, and there's an anxiety about that. There's an edge to that, but there's an exhilaration in that as well, in that it is on you, win or lose. You've got to produce today. It's not mailing it in. It's not, going through the motions. You've got to produce. And small business owners told me that. There was a guy who ran a window and door company, and he said, this is going to be awesome. He says, it's going to be terrifying and awesome. And so I remember walking to T-Mobile Arena. It was going to be the first column that I wrote as JohnCanzano.com. I had so many questions. Like, when I walk in the door, are they going to talk to me? Like, because you get used to thinking that the institution is what the reason why people are talking to you. And, are these, is the commissioner of the Pac-12, is Dana Altman going to talk to me? Are they going to look at me and go, who do you work for? You don't work for paper now? Forget it. I'm not going to talk to you. And it was really validating. I ran into Bill Walton on the loading dock, like right as I walk in the building. And he says, tell me about this pirate ship that you've launched, and so I tell Walton this thing, and Walton had this beautiful way of making everybody around him feel important. He made everybody feel like, I watched him interact with fans, and he'd make everybody feel like they were the most important person in the room. And when I left him, he fist bumped me and he said, be relentless. And every time I saw him after that, he would say, you are relentless. And so it just meant a lot to me. I remember I wrote that first column, and usually I write at the arena, but I didn't. I left the arena because it was a daytime game. I walked back to my hotel. I was staying at the Cosmo, and I went up and I wrote the column, and then I was going to go to dinner. And I had this fear that, like, would 6 people read me? I had millions of people reading me over the course of a year at a paper. Who would read me? And so as I got in the elevator, I get a notification on my phone every time somebody gets a subscription. It says, you have a new subscriber. Here's their name. Here's their email address. And I've never disabled that notification because it's so validating to me to see the people who say, hey, I'm with you. I'm with you on this. But I remember getting on that elevator, and y'all know in a casino, you get on the elevator, you lose kind of connection with the world as the elevator's going down. And I was looking at my phone. I had posted the column, and I'm going, is anybody going to subscribe? Like, you know, I posted it to Twitter, put it on Facebook. And the elevator got to the bottom. And as I'm walking through the casino floor at the Cosmo, I'm passing the sports book. I'll never forget the spot I was in. I looked at my phone, and it was like new subscriber, new subscriber, new subscriber. I got glassy-eyed, Puck. I was literally like, they get it. So they understand what I'm trying to do. And you know that because you've gone rogue yourself on this pirate ship. You know what it means when somebody's watching you, listening to you, subscribing. You know, you understand it.
Well, congratulations. Again, 4 years. It is kind of, I mean, It feels like yesterday that you started this whole thing, and it's just great work. It's every time you write something, whether it's on reporting on something, whether it's just a column on sports, what you've seen, human interest, it's just everything. You cover it all. It's great work. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Congratulations also to your staff. You have photographers that I know have been nominated for awards this year for taking pictures and photos at events. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things. Like when I looked at the top 10 of the Associated Press Sports Editors Photography Competition, I've got 2 of the top 10 on my staff. And I'm looking around going, all the rest of these enterprises are like legitimate news agencies. It's so validating. And, you know, to everyone who watches this, I've had a number of people who watch this who say, I subscribed because I saw you on Puck. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being out there. It means a lot to me.
Get some percentage of that.
Let's not get carried away.
Let's write that down. All right, you're the best. We'll see you later.
Thanks, buddy.
There he is, John Canzano, johncanzano.com. Again, if you're not a subscriber, go do so today. All brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. Great information there on the situation over there at Washington State. Again, I was always under the impression, reading his contract, which, by the way, is public, that his buyout was $1 million. But according to Canzano, if you're just joining the live show late and missed this in the beginning. And as always, the Canzano will be part of the YouTube and then all podcasts together as the one show, but we separate John as well there on YouTube. So it'll be part of that as well. So you can go back and watch and listen to him from today. That his buyout actually is $2.7 million. So again, you're saying, well, for most schools, would $2.7 million be that much of a hindrance of buying him out and firing him? Probably not. For this school, it's a difference. And maybe they value David Riley. Maybe they think Riley can be a good coach, and maybe they see some hope for him that if they give him more resources, that he will do a better job with the basketball team next year. I don't know. I mean, again, I think they should have moved on. Not going to but sit there again. Now I'm going to sit there and support the team. I mean, I want the team to do well. I want the basketball team to find success. And, you know, I think in the early part of last season when, you know, they were having success, you could see some things that he can do well. But again, I think I've watched 2 years of basketball of a team. And again, you can have issues with talent, but you can show pride and effort on defense, and that they don't. And I think that does come back to coaching. So, cautiously optimistic. I'll fingers crossed for it, but you know, listen, it's a 99% chance they're going to lose ace class. They got to replace their best player. And there'll be another roster turnover again. But good stuff on that. Where with Canzano, also the situation with John Harlow and the AD, and hopefully getting the permanent job there soon with John Harlow. All right, we haven't got to this yet. Robbie Tobeck is coming up, excuse me, in a quick second. We talked to Robbie, of course, former Washington State center. He was also center football. Center, you know that. I don't need to tell you that. Center for the Seahawks. Caught up with him this morning to talk about just the investment. I wanted more from a player's perspective and alumni perspective of what this investment and how crucial it is for Washington State athletics from Robbie Tobeck's perspective, because Robbie's been very outspoken, critical of the school in the past of not doing this, and the Board of Regents of not helping out the athletic department. When most schools and border regions across this country do this, and ours was not doing it. So he's been very adamant, along with, Alex Brink has mentioned this many times before. Both very adamant and outspoken that the school and the border regions on the academic side needs to step up and show their athletic department support, because it is the athletics, whether people in academia like it or not, or the window into the university. So I wanted to get Robbie's perspective on that. We will do that shortly. Now, we've got to get to Cal and Randy. I mean, in a case you are under a rock and not on social media or did not watch the WBC, what have you. Sometimes we live these diehard sports fans like myself and others. We live in this bubble. We think everybody sees everything. But you may have not seen this during the Mexico and U.S. game last night, which was a great game, by the way. I think Mexico gave them a much better game than I thought a lot of people thought. 2, even though they were playing in Houston, the U.S. fans were outnumbered by Mexico fans. I mean, they got booed in the beginning. I mean, they're playing in Houston. But Randy Arozarena comes up to bat and extends his hand out to Cal Raleigh, his teammate. Cal shakes him off, says something. We don't know what he said. Cal did not talk to reporters yesterday, or maybe he was out of the locker room before he talked. So we haven't heard Cal's interpretation of what happened yesterday. I will read you what Randy Arozarena said after the game. And I've seen the video. I don't know if he's joking or not. I still do not know. I don't think it really matters, because all of this is entertainment to me. But in case you didn't see it yesterday, Randy Arozarena going up to shake his hand, extends it out, says something to him. Cal says, no, get your hand out of there. Randy leans in again. It's like, hey, man, take my hand. Now, some people are saying that Cal didn't do it because some players will put pine tar on, well, they will, because they have the bat. We'll put pine tar on the gloves, and that if you touch the pitcher and then he touches the ball, then they can say, hey, the pitcher's got pine tar on the ball. I don't know. Maybe that's exactly what happened, and maybe that's what Randy was doing. And I'll be honest with you, watching Randy Arozarena, Randy land from afar, is that plausible to me? You're damn right that's plausible to me. That is 100% plausible to me that Randy Arozarena would try, and Mexico would try to do that. Hey, put a bunch of pine tar on your hand. See if Cal shakes it. Because Randy could have done the fist bump, right? Just a quick little fist bump. And maybe if he offered the fist bump, Cal then taps it to him. But Cal probably going, man, I know what you're up to, Randy, and I'm not going to fall for it. I'm not going to shake your hand, because once I shake your hand, I got pine tar all over my hand. And then I throw that ball back, and then you guys go to the umpire and say, hey, I think he's got pine tar, and it's going to be pine tar is going to be all over the ball. Maybe we're all overthinking it. I don't know. I don't know if this is serious afterwards, what Arozarena said. But he was asked by a reporter, and you've probably seen that on social media if you've been following the story. The translation is this, what Randy said to a reporter in the hallway after the game. The only thing Cal, should be thankful for is having such great parents. This was Arozarena to Mexican journalist Louis Gilbert. He's very well educated, thank God. I was lucky enough to see him a few days ago at the hotel. They came over to greet me, gave me a big hug, and were genuinely proud to see me again. After that, he said this about Cal. F off and go to hell. That good to see you that he said to me, he can shove it straight up his ass. I'm out. And then Arozarena walked away. I've watched it a million times. I'm going to lean towards, I think Randy's having fun with this, and he's kind of playing this up because this is kind of his personality anyways. He's out there. It's Randy land. But it's funny. Dan Wilson was asked about it today at camp by reporters there. Wilson offered this up when he was asked, hey, have you seen the video? What do you make of it? And Wilson said, these guys are incredible athletes because of their competitiveness. But I also know that our team loves each other deeply. And that's one of the key ingredients we have in that clubhouse is how much they love each other. So I don't anticipate this being any bit of an issue. Neither do I. But I like it. It's fun. Right? Isn't it more plausible that Randy was trying to get pine tar on Cal's hands? Yeah, I think so. A great moment. This was early this morning. The game started at 3 our time. Czechia taking on Japan. Andre Satoria is a pitcher for Czechia. He pitched in his final career game. Go back and find the video online. It was a great game, by the way. 4 2/3 shutout baseball by the man. It was his last game ever. He's done playing baseball. Because back home, he's not a baseball player. He's an electrician. This is what I love about the WBC. You've got all these Major League Baseball stars making $20 million, and then a guy pitching for Czechia whose fastball is topping out at 80 miles an hour, who's an electrician back home, who just shut out Japan. And I don't think they had their A lineup in there. I don't think Otani was in there. But just one of those great stories. Anyways, the Japanese crowd understanding this, knowing this was his last game, because they're just a very educated baseball fan base, call him out for a standing ovation. And they gave him this great standing ovation early this morning. It's really, really, really cool moment. Get some time. Go check it out. U.S. taking on Italy today. We get to see Dami Canzone, 6 o'clock there on FS1. We'll get into more after we talk to Robbie. We'll get into more Robbie Tobeck. We'll get into more some of the Seahawks news there on free agency and recap anything that happened today. Also look at the running back class. But again, Robbie Tobeck, caught up with him earlier today and wanted to get his thoughts on the Board of Regents has given the athletic department $20 million. It is a significant investment by the school into the athletic department. What does this mean for the athletic department? What kind of gesture is this from them? And how impactful will this be? Robbie Tobeck's been very outspoken on social media that the school needed to do this. He's an alumni, former player, so he understands what this means. Robbie Tobeck coming up next. First, a word from Georgetown Brewery.
Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic-style lager. 4.2% alcohol. Cheap, good, local.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Robbie Tobeck, former Coug, great center, of course, Seahawks center as well, longtime NFL center, and he's with us here today on the Daily Puck Drop. Robbie, I wanted to get you on because you have been very vocal and prominent on social media talking about recently what happened at Washington State, something that doesn't happen too often, right? The Board of Regents decided to spend or allocate $20 million back to athletics. And I know this is something that you have been pushing for and other players have been pushing for. And I know myself and probably other fans are wondering, okay, well, I thought they already kind of did this. Why is this significant? So for those fans out there, I mean, what they did this past week, why is that so significant, what the Board of Regents did for athletics at Washington State?
Well, it's huge going into our new conference. And what it does is it puts us on an even playing field with the Boise States and Utah States and Fresno States of the world. We were at the bottom of the new conference in institutional support. And, you know, we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to be one of the original members of the old Pac-12 and then come into this new Pac-12 and do this and make the same mistakes that we made in the past as far as budget, being at the bottom of our conference. We're always at the bottom in our budget, and it didn't play out too well for us before, and that's why we got relegated. And if we don't want to stay relegated, if we don't want to win, then let's just keep doing the same things we've always done. But what I like about our new president, President Cantwell, is she's really made the push to put her money where her mouth is. And she's been saying, hey, alumni, we've got to step up to the plate. And I've said that for a long time. We're always at the bottom as far as alumni contributions and stuff like that. But on the flip side of that is, I agree with you, President Cantwell, but as the institution, you got to take the lead. You got to put your money where your mouth is as well. And to their credit, they've done that. And what that does is it puts us on an even playing field with the other teams in our conference, because the revenue model for us has changed. It used to be that we were making enough money in the old Pac-12 from TV, the shared conference revenues, all that big bucket. We were making enough money to kind of support the athletic program with only $4 million of institutional support, which is really nothing when you look at a $1.2 billion budget that Washington State has. And with a $1.2 billion budget, there was no reason for the regents and president and all those to not find that extra $20 million to put us on that even par, because we have to come out. We have to be the blue blood of this new conference. If we ever want to reach the heights that we say we want to reach, we've got to invest in that. And I really believe that the rising tide of athletics will raise the ship of Washington State University. And that's been proven out time and time again, both at Washington State University and around the country.
Yeah, I think we saw it. I mean, because the last time I saw this type of investment from a president was President Elson Floyd, along with Bill Moose at that time, that you saw this investment from the academic side to athletics. And I remember him saying one time, listening to him speak, saying, and you've heard this term before from a lot of people in academics, saying that, listen, football and sports are the window into the university. I remember him saying that, but he, believed it. He's like, people are going to recognize us for how our football team does. What shifted after he passed away? Then we went into a different president, and then now President Cantwell has come back. What happened to that support? And is that something, in speaking with Cantwell, that you think she recognized right away that needed to change and get better?
Well, I think what you look at when you go back to Elson Floyd is bold leadership. He was a bold leader. Bill Moose was a bold leader. But and what we did at the time, I believe you're referring to, is the new buildings we have. The football ops facility, all those things, the investment and all that. But what they did is the university wasn't covering that. University was backing it, but athletics and football is what's paying for that. And so that kind of put us behind the eight ball a little bit as well. And so what this $20 million does is help, however they allocate it, I don't know, but helps pay for that. And I believe that you skip forward to President Cantwell and you have someone else that has bold leadership. This is what we're doing. This is the direction we're going. Get on board. Let's go. And I just think in between there, we didn't have that. We had let's get by. And the Pac-12 is falling apart. Now, I'll give the previous administration credit for fighting once it all fell apart, but we should have never been in the position that we're in when it did fall apart. But that's another story.
Is you bring up, hey, you hope. Well, listen, from President Cantwell, you have to get support from alumni, but it's also the school needs to step up and support as well, right? You've got to, actions speak louder than words. For alumni and fans, this has been kind of the old age debate, right, Robbie? Why? It's a very passionate fan base. You walk around, You see people, you go Cougs and all that. But when it comes to things like this and money and support, to me, I thought when NIL started, that and fans could start giving money, I thought it would be a runaway success for this school. It just hasn't been that case. But that's like a larger, I guess, topic of getting people to go back to Pullman, getting fans engaged. How can the school, how can alumni, how can we do better to have a fan base that's more engaged in their athletic programs?
Well, I think a lot of that comes from winning and thus the investment, right? Every time we've won big in football. There's been an increase in contributions and stuff like that, because people want to know, like, hey, my money's actually going to something that's going to pay off. You know, if all we're going to do is lose all the time, why am I giving money? You know, and I think the institution taking the lead in that really should get us fired up, because look, I've heard Cougs in the past. I hear Cougs still saying the thing that I hate more than anything is we do more with less. No, we don't. That's why we got relegated, right? That's why we got left behind. We don't do more with less. We never have, and you can't, especially in this day and age. But what we have in front of us is the greatest opportunity we've ever had to compete for conference championships year in, year out. And I don't care who you're playing on Saturday. If you're winning, it's going to be a great time. It's going to be fun. It's going to be something for us to take pride in, and it's going to be something for us to build a program in, and vice versa. Kids are going to want to go there and be a part of that winning. I mean, yeah, you know, you look at Boise State, who's probably our new rival, right? You know, the new team we love to hate. Look at the last 20, 25 years of their run and the last 20, 25 years of our run. They played in New Year's Six bowls, New Year's Day bowls, not New Year's, but New Year's Day bowls, all those types of things. And frankly, we haven't. So does it really matter that they were in this conference and we were in that conference? No. What matters is winning, and they won, and they've built a tradition. Now it's time. Now it's our turn, but it's going to take all of us. We all need to step up. We have a wealthy alumni base. We have a passionate fan base. I mean, if it's waving the flag or buying a license plate or doing those types of things, nobody's going to beat us, right? Nobody's going to beat us. But when it comes to stepping up, financially, and I know not everyone can give $1 million or $100 or whatever, but everyone can participate on some level to as little as $18.90 a month at the Cougar Collective. So there's opportunities for us to all take ownership, and that's what I'm excited about. Is I'm seeing Cougs, not only the university now and Cougar alumni, starting to get it that, hey, we got to own this thing, and if we own this thing, we'll win, we'll be successful, and we're going to have a great time doing it.
Robbie, do you have a preference or an idea of this money and how it should be used, or how you would like it to be used?
Well, in this day and age, it's all about talent acquisition. Now, I think they've come out and said that it's not going for that necessarily, but there's a lot of ways for the athletic department to use that money. I mean, you know, one of the things that I think the university could do as well, in addition to this, is get rid of the requirement for the athletic department to pay for scholarships. That's one thing the university all these years has charged the athletic department tuition and fees and all those types of things, when really that's a low-hanging fruit that could really free up some money that we could put towards, developing athletes and recruiting and all those types of things. So when it gets into those specifics and what, I'll leave that to John Harlow, President Cantwell, and our coaches and how they see fit best to win football games and basketball games and whatever it might be.
How do you get more people to come back, whether it's for football or basketball games, Robbie?
You win. Because when people go there and we win and we have fun, it makes you want to go back because you had such a good time. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do things. Get local kids involved. Get local football league. Get them a ticket. Just get fans in the stands and make it something. But also influence the people around you. You know, hey, grab your buddy. Hey, let's go. You know, your fraternity brother that you went to school there. Let's go to the Arizona game. Let's go to this game. Let's go. You know, we haven't gone. Our kids are older now. Let's get back there, or let's take our kids. Those types of things. And look, I went to Ole Miss last year. Virginia, you know what a pain in the backside those two places were to get to. So we're not the only ones that are in a remote place. We're an hour and a half from Spokane. What are we? An hour and a half from Tri-Cities, all those types of things. I know it's a drive from Seattle. I used to make it every weekend because when I was living in Seattle, I had season tickets, so I get it. And I know it's an expensive weekend. It can be. But I really think the university's trying some stuff. I think the game day atmosphere is going to be greatly improved. Going to match what people around the country are doing now. So I think that was a great deal, and paid for by Cougar alumni. They didn't have to dip into the budget. That was money raised by Cougar alum, and so that's exciting. Those types of things, but I think just grab your friends, let's go to games. We got a 30,000 seat stadium, and it's a loud place. It's a great place. It's a great atmosphere, but we should be able to pack that thing out.
How important is this first year in this conference, especially with football? And you got a brand new staff there with Kirby Moore, who brings back, a style of play that I think Cougar fans are more accustomed to, right? It's not to say that people weren't satisfied with how Jimmy Rogers and his staff coached. I mean, it was a different style of football, right? Defense first, very conservative, run the ball. But Kirby's bringing an offense that most people have watched over the years there at Washington State. But this first year in this new conference, the importance of putting, that first foot forward and being successful. How important is that, Robbie?
I think it's so important that we come out of the gate establishing ourselves as the blue blood of this conference. I mean, we want to be what USC was in the old Pac-12. Where you always had to count on them to compete for a championship. And I honestly, but 6, 7 out of 10 years we should be in that conference championship game or winning that conference. I mean, we have to establish ourselves that, and I just, it's exciting to me because I'll tell you what, you look at, you look at like Fresno State and Arizona State, right? And you say, well, we used to play Arizona State, now we're playing Fresno. If you look at history, Fresno State has a better football history, honestly, than Arizona State does. So why wouldn't we be excited about playing that school? My son played at Utah State. That's now a rivalry, that I have between me and him. And they have a great program. You look at guys like Bobby Wagner and all the guys they've put out, it's a great program there. And we got to get excited because we're not just because we're Washington State and Oregon State coming from the old Pac-12. We're not going to just come in there and roll these teams. These teams are excited to be a part of this new Pac-12, and we better match or surpass that excitement, or it's not going to be good. And I really believe in Kirby Moore. He's done a great job as far as if you look at the guys he signed and stuff like that. The kid can obviously recruit, man. So let's go out and support him.
Does style matter? What I brought up, does the style of play matter, do you think, to this fan base?
Yeah, I guess I kind of glossed over that. Yeah, I think, for me, I think it does. I think there's a perception there that, we got to be wide open. I frankly don't care. I just want to win. I'm a firm believer that you got to run the ball. And when I was not our 92 team, the Copper Bowl team, we had Bledsoe, who led the Pac-10 in passing, and Sean Wright Fair, who led the Pac-10 in running the foot and rushing. So, we could do both. And I think that's what's successful. I think that's what Kirby wants to do, is both. Now, this staff we had last year, they were a little stubborn, and, I don't know what that guy's issue was. But running the ball just to run the ball because, by golly, I said I'm going to run the ball and I'm from South Dakota State. That that was just insane, some of the stuff we did last year. And it really made things a lot harder on us and cost us a couple of wins just because of stubbornness and wanting to be a tough guy. And that's not what it's about. Running the football, it complements your passing game. Passing game complements running the football. And you just got to get after people. I get that. And you look at our great Seahawks teams we had when I was there. We could do both. But that's the key. Having some balance is the key to winning. Because you look at the Leach teams, and I love Mike Leach, and I love what he did for our school, but there were times where, doggone it, if we could have run the ball a little bit, it would have been better for us, right?
It's almost you had to mirror Jimmy Rogers' offense with Leach's offense and kind of bring it
exactly.
together, right?
Exactly.
Well, we'll see. I think there's a lot of people excited about what Kirby can bring, to that university. The fact that he's, a state, he's a local state resident. He's, grew up not a few hours from Pullman, telling everyone in interviews after he was hired that he, grew up going to games there. And of course, anybody that knows his dad understands how just a dominant of a high school football coach his dad was. So I think there's a lot to be excited for. And I agree with you. I think winning brings people back. Before I let you go, what would your last message just be to fans who continue to maybe sit on the couch and not get involved and not support?
Hey, it's if you're a fan and you want to win, it's time to get involved. If you don't care about sports and you don't care about athletics, fine, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about to the people that want to wave the flag, that want to complain. I mean, I look on Facebook. We have a thing called Die Hard Cougs on Facebook. Yeah. There's 30,000 people that are part of that. 30,000 last time I checked. Let's get involved, 30,000. Let's support our program. Let's try to do it a different way than we've always done it. And let's give it a few years and see where it takes us. I promise you, if we do it different, you look at Indiana, we're going to win, we're going to have fun, and it's going to be a blast. And it'll be, my dream is that someday the ticket in Pullman is so hard to get on game day Saturdays that we actually got to talk about adding more bleacher seats to that stadium. That would be my dream.
Robbie, great stuff. Appreciate the time. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Big thanks to Robbie Tobeck again for joining us on today's Daily Puck Drop. And again, we'll have that up on YouTube separate in addition to the full show. Robbie talking about the investment that the Board of Regents made, $20 million there into WSU athletics. Great perspective from a former great player who's very passionate there about his university. I promise you before we get on out of here, we would circle back and talk about the Seahawks and what's the latest there in the running back situation. Obviously losing Kenneth Walker. They got to find someone, and guys are dropping off left and right. You've seen, ETN has gone down to the Saints. Rico Dowdle's no longer available. Kenneth Gainwell, and we've gone over all those guys. So what is left right now for them to go out and pursue? Before we get to one name that actually Rob State and I talked about back in December, I'm going to play you some audio and video from Mike Garafolo. Mike, he's with us every single week from the NFL Network, who talked about a player, a running back that we actually with Mike discussed last week, and that would be Buccaneers free agent Rashad White.
Rosenthal, our guy at NFL.com, is 101 free agents. The top remaining running back right now, Rashad White, formerly of the Buccaneers. I say formerly because they signed Kenneth Gainwell. We're expecting White to head elsewhere. And I've always watched Rashad White down there in Tampa, and I thought he was underutilized. I always thought he was one of the best running backs that the Buccaneers have had in recent memory. They had a 1,500-yard season just a couple of years ago. And then, I understand Bucky Irving and even Sean Tucker was doing some stuff for them. I was just talking to a personnel guy the other day. I said, this guy can do a little bit of everything, right? He's like, yeah, and he can even pass protect really well. So I'm expecting something to happen here in the near future with Rashad White. I'm told that he was one of the fallback options potentially in Seattle if they didn't have Kenneth Walker, and some of these other teams going to be looking at Rashad White. And maybe I'm biased for a couple of reasons. One, we've had him on the Insiders, and he was a terrific interview. And two, he was just in my town a couple of weeks ago at my daughter's school. He was taking pictures with the kids and playing with them, and a really fantastic fantastic time they have with the kids. So Rashad White, good guy, good guest, good football player, expecting him to sign somewhere in the near future.
And that's what it comes down to for Garofalo. Was Rashad White nice to his daughters? Come on, Mike. You're exposing yourself. But again, Mike brought up White last week when we were discussing this. What would the fallback option be for Seattle? And again, Rashad White's name has been mentioned. He certainly would not cost them a lot. He's 27 years of age, just turned 27. I mean, he's got great size. Old Pac-12 guys remember him. He was a star at Arizona State. He's 6 foot, about 215, coming off a year with, again, not a starter, not a lot of carries, but 572 yards this 572 yards, this past season on the ground. Has been in his career a threat out of the backfield. I mean, he's been over throughout his entire career, first 4 years in the league, 40 receptions or more. The rookie season, he had 50, then 64, 51 last year, 40. In terms of yards, 290, 549. That was his best year number 2, 393 and 218. Has not eclipsed 1,000 yards on the ground, but again, he's never been the featured guy. Averaged just under 4 yards a carry, 3.9. Is that going to wow everybody? No. I don't think it's going to excite people that if they bring in Rashad White, would he be better with more of an opportunity, more of a lead running back, especially since they've got to wait until Zach Charbonnet is healthy? It's just an option out there right now of Rashad White, of a fallback plan. You've heard another guy being mentioned would be Brian Robinson. He's the running back out of San Francisco. He'd spent his first 3 years with the Commanders, and then this last season with the 49ers, just finishing up his fourth season in the NFL. Obvious connection is going to be with the offensive coordinator, Brian Fleury, now being the job here in Seattle. First 3 years in Washington, he was real solid. He was a solid running back. Good carries. I mean, he had good yards, good production. Didn't do much this past year. But they've got Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he's a bigger running back. And you want to talk about a bruiser, a guy that's going to run between the tackles and lower his shoulder. And I remember we all remember watching him. Like, he's a physical dude. He looks the part, 6'1", 225. Kenny McIntosh is a guy that is obviously on the roster. He's going to go entering his fourth year in the league. He's only appeared in 20 games, mostly on special teams. I just don't know how much they're going to be able to lean on him. I don't know what his health situation is like. I don't think anybody knows. Tore his ACL late there in training camp. Other than that, it's George Holani. A guy that Rob Staten and I talked about back in December. And this was even a guy that had been rumored, would they trade for him at the deadline? Being an option. Devon Outchain there for the Miami Dolphins, who right now is their best player. He's electric. He's not as big as like Brian Robinson, or not even necessarily as big as Rashad White. Rob wrote about this. It's up there. I'll link to it later at SeahawksDraftBlog.com. It's back on December 15th, and you can look for the date. But why he thinks this would be a good fit. I'd agree. He's not as big as McCaffrey. He's probably 10 to 15 pounds lighter, but he's very similar in terms of how Miami, with how Mike McDaniel coming from San Francisco, used Christian McCaffrey. Now, again, you'd have to trade for him. And they were linked to him earlier this year, or last in the season. And it was rumored, as Rob wrote, about a second-round pick. I don't know if that changes now in the offseason. This guy is as productive as a running back that you will find. Over 1,300 yards on the ground, averaged a near 6 yards a carry. He's a threat out of the backfield, 67 grabs last year for almost 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, the question is Miami willing to part with him? He is their best player now. Obviously, it'd be prudent maybe for the Seahawks to kick the tires on him and just say, hey, we bring him up because he was rumored, he was linked to the Seahawks before. The Seahawks need a running back because right now, not much left on the free agency market. And if you listen to all these draft pundits, and again, they can be wrong, by the way, and they'll admit that, hey, we're wrong more than we're probably right. Not a great year, I guess, technically for running backs. But again, that's what it looks like now. Talk to us in 5 years from now, and maybe the class looks better. But, the Athletics, if you go there, they got 3 running backs in the top 100. It's the 2 kids out of Notre Dame, and then Emmett Washington, who I think is out of Arkansas, I think. No, Louisville? No, Mike Washington's the other guy. He's out of Arkansas. You got Nick Singleton out of Penn State. Jonah Coleman's been mentioned out of Washington. So, again, they may say it's a bad class now, but who knows? Maybe it changes. But that's the very latest. They're on the running back situation at Washington State. And at this moment, in terms of no suitor yet for Riq Woolen, which I guess is not all that surprising. Kind of felt like maybe that, well, I don't know. Maybe it is a little surprising. Maybe I thought Riq Woolen would have found a home by now. Maybe Seattle gets him back on a hometown discount. I don't know. All right, On This Day is brought to you by Hive Social. Check out Hive Social, the official social meetup app of Puck Sports. You can be part of the Puck's Posse group on Hive Social, by the way. That's HYV Social. Easiest way to learn about groups or about events and all that. Discover things, friends, what people are doing in your neighborhood. They're at Hive Social. Download it today on iOS and Google Play. It is free. That is Hive Social, HYV Social. Invite your friends and fellow sports fans to be a part of your community there on Hive Social. On this day, March 10th, let's get into some birthdays. Boy, this guy was a hell of a basketball player back in the day. He decided to stay at the same high school, did not decide to transfer to a prep school or to a powerhouse in the area. He said, you know what? I grew up in this neighborhood. I'm going to stay in this neighborhood, and I'm going to continue to play with these guys. And boy, was he a stud. In fact, I don't think this guy gets talked about enough of how great he was and how of a basketball product from this area, because he's not technically Seattle or even Tacoma, because he's from Bothell High School. He starred there when he was a senior. Zach LaVine, he scored 28 points. He was named the Washington State Player of the Year. He played at UCLA for a couple of years. He was drafted 13th overall by the T-Wolves. He's been a 2-time All-Star. He was an All-Rookie back in 2015, dunk contest winner in 15 and 16. Still playing today, by the way, for the miserable Sacramento Kings. He was a stud. Still is. I mean, the bounce and creativity and the quickness, probably Zach doesn't get talked about enough of when we talk about the greats that have come out of here, basketball players, because he played at Bothell. Bothel's never, well, football-wise, but not basketball-wise, never been a kind of a basketball program. Probably doesn't get enough credit for how good he was. Also, happy birthday on this day going out to Justin Herbert, or you know him as Herbert. Oregon quarterback, Chargers quarterback, turns 28 today, born in beautiful Eugene, Oregon. He attended the University of Oregon. Interesting story about Herbert, kind of a lesson to all, maybe kids in high school, these recruiting rankings, everything that comes out every year. He was not recruited barely coming out of Sheldon High School there in Eugene. Also, like another quarterback coming out of Sheldon High School, that would be the great Alex Brink. His first offers coming out of high school were Northern Arizona, Portland State, and Montana State. He had 2 D1 offers, 2. One was Nevada, the other was Oregon. He decided to stay home and go to Oregon. I think it paid off. I think it did. He gets drafted in the first round. What was he, 5th or 6th overall? He's the Rookie of the Year in 2020 and a 2-time Pro Bowler there for the Chargers. Over to music. Not every day that a rock star shares a birthday with one of the greatest Seattle Times Mariners beat reporters, but that's what we got today. Not shares a birthday, shares a hometown, I should say. Pearl Jam rocker Jeff Ament is 63 years young today, born in the same hometown as the human pony cake Ryan Divish. That is right. Jeffrey Allen Ament, born in Havre, Montana, eventually would move to Big Sandy, Montana. That's where he grew up. His father was the mayor of Big Sandy for 15 years. Not only just the mayor was Jeff Ament's father, he was also the town's barber and the school bus driver. Triple threat, that guy. In 1990, along with Stone Gossard and Mike McCready, he created a little band called Pearl Jam. Later, they would invite a young man from San Diego named Eddie Vedder, and the band would take off. Originally, they were called Mookie Blaylock. after the basketball player, but they had to change it because of his name, and they landed on Pearl Jam. Also, more in the music industry, you may not know this person unless you're like a music geek. I am not, by the way, but I know who this guy is. He's probably one of the most famous producers of all time. Legendary music producer Rick Rubin is 63 today. Co-founded Def Jam Recordings. He produced acts like LL Cool J. He discovered the Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Public Enemy, the Ghetto Boys. He's also worked with rock musicians, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, the Strokes, also country musicians as well, Johnny Cash. Long hair, hippie. One of the best. Rick Rubin turning 63 today. That is everything happening on this day on March 10th, brought to you by Hive Social. Download the Puck Sports official social meetup app from Hive Social, from iOS and Google Play. Hey, What the Puck is brought to you by Tersuli Construction. From emergency response to full-scale rebuilds and remodels, Tersuli Construction is a full-service contractor handling your project from start to finish. Locally owned and operated out of Ballard, proudly serving the Puget Sound region for over 15 years. If you're dealing with damage or planning what's next, call the team that does it all. Tersuli Construction, restoring what matters, building what's next. Give them a call at 206-793-3744 and visit them at tersuli.com. I'm in no position to question someone's competitive fire. These guys are all competitive. They all want to be the best. And they wouldn't be in professional baseball if they did not have a competitive desire and a burning competitiveness drive in them. But I just don't understand Tarik Skubal. I don't. There's just something off about him. I mean, either pitch in the WBC or don't. Just go home. You can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and just I really want to stay. I really wish I could stay. You can stay. You just stay. No one's forcing you to leave. You're allowing your agent and your agent to make you go home because he's worried about you getting hurt. He works for you. It's not the other way around. But Scott Boras is very powerful. But Tarik Skubal, this is your life. If you want to pitch, then do it. But stop the grandstanding. Either pitch, go home. And here's the thing. And I know they're going to welcome him back. Don't come back. If I was on that team, I'd be like, nah, we're good. You didn't want to be here. All those guys are risking it's not like those guys aren't risking injury there. Everyone that is committed, not only to Team USA, but all these teams who play in professional baseball are under the risk of getting hurt. You're not alone in this. I don't know, go away. I just think that we talk about aces, guys wanting the ball. I always think of Madison Bumgarner in the World Series. I mean, when the Giants, the guy pitched like every game. And when he wasn't starting, he came out of the bullpen. He's like, I'll throw more. I'll just throw it till my arm falls off. Eventually I think his arm did fall off because he wanted to win. I said this repeatedly. This guy pulled himself from an elimination game last year. And don't tell me, no, his manager did. He allowed it to happen and was okay with it. He was at 99 pitches when he came out of that game 5. The Mariners couldn't touch him. He just struck out Cal on 3 pitches that were 99, 99, and 100. And he wasn't emptying the chamber like I have heard people say. In the 3rd inning, he was throwing 100. He was on his game. And he allowed, he's like, oh, well, I'm going to come out. And then he plays this whole song and dance with Team USA. Just go home, don't come back. All right, make up your mind. That's What the Puck, brought to you by Tersuli Construction. Give them a call, 206-793-3744. Visit them, tersuli.com. Thank you to everyone watching and listening to today's show. Thank you to all our sponsors, as always. Limbeck Lumber, Flat Stick Pub, Georgetown Brewery, Hive Social, Tersuli Construction. Today's Daily Punch-Up, find it up on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. Also find it on your favorite podcast platforms, Apple and Spotify. Please write a review if you can. Rate the show, please. Also with YouTube, please subscribe to the channel as well. Also, you can go to pucksports.com. There, you can sign up to become a Pucks Posse member. It's just $5 a month. You support all the free content we do. In addition, we give you bonus shows throughout the week. If the $5 is too much, we'll work something out. We want everyone to have access. Send me an email, puck@pucksports.com. Tuesdays, you get the Sports Bit with Matt Stretch Johnson coming out later today. Inside Pitch with Ryan Davish on Wednesdays, and KJ Arntz with Mitch Levy on Thursdays. Also, we now produce the Groz with Gas Take 5 podcast. That, by the way, is coming out tomorrow. All right, we will talk to you on Wednesday's show. The go-to guy will be back. We'll talk baseball with Ryan Divish. Until then, we promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah. I was born to love. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you, but you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for? We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!